How's it going, guys? Sam from West Meadow Rabbits here. We just get clobbered in New England with a bunch of snow and some pretty cold weather, so I felt like today would be an appropriate day to talk about winter rabbit care. I'm going to try to keep it kind of quick because it is a little chilly out here. Okay, to start off with, I want to talk about housing in the winter. I know it's not pretty, but rabbits can actually take a ridiculous amount of cold. They just don't like getting wet, and they don't like the snow. So if you've seen my other videos before, you know this is an outdoor pen that's been converted into a rabbit area. And in the winter, I've just screwed on these pieces of sheet metal. Very cheap, very easy. I traded them with a farmer for some labor. And they just get screwed on here on three sides. Relax, guys, it's just me. So there's one right here, one in the back, one in the other back, and then you've got the wall of the chicken coop on this side. So what that does is, let me see if we can get out here, back out here. In my area, the prevailing winds generally come from the north and the east, which is, this way. So I've got that all blocked off. At the same time, this wire door is, that's always open. And there's space up there for air to get in, and there's space down the bottom for air to get in. And that's the big thing in the winter. You want to keep them out of the wind and out of the snow, but you need to maintain airflow. Locking a rabbit up inside of a shed is the worst thing you can do because airflow is so much more important than, extreme temperatures. So I also breed through the winter. And if you've got an enclosed area like this, the babies will usually be all right, as long as you make sure that they don't fall out of the nest box. I have one litter over here that just started coming out of the nest box, but they were born, about a month ago, and they've been in here, the nest box. I leave the nest box in a little longer in the winter, but otherwise it's pretty much the same deal. Once those guys are furred and hopping around, they're perfectly okay. And if you've got a setup like this where there's no wind on pretty much all sides of them, and you put plenty of hay and plenty of shavings, they've sort of packed it down. But if you fill that up really good, make a nice deep layer of shavings before adding any hay in, and then the mother adds the hay and more shavings on top, that'll keep them really warm, and they'll actually be able to take a surprising amount of cold weather. Otherwise, you can see everybody's pretty much fine. No major deals. If you don't have this kind of setup, you may have a shed, which is even better for winter. So this guy, I leave the two front openings I've cut into it. Those stay open because they're high up and they're not where the prevailing winds come from. The north side, which makes up the back wall of that area, is completely solid. So when the northern winds come in, there's no wind coming in from that side. And as you can see, everybody's doing fine in here. This litter just recently got moved out of their nest box. They're all doing fine. Happy, hungry little guys. And that window is covered. That window is covered, but I leave this one in the middle open to get some cross circulation. But again, there's no openings on this side with the exception of a little slit down the bottom underneath there. And there's no openings on the north side, again, with the exception of a little slit down the bottom. And that keeps the airflow good, but makes sure nobody's getting direct wind flow on them. So those two windows would be open in the summer. So these cages and these cages are getting breezes, but in the winter they're closed. And obviously this one's above the cage. This is in the middle. So again, nobody's getting too much wind on them. And then finally, if you have a hutch setup, because I have all three types, these can actually be great in the winter also. As you can see, again, the only side that's exposed here is the one that is receiving the least amount of wind and the most amount of sunshine. So south is approximately that way. So you've got sun coming in pretty much all day. Like I said, the winds don't come in from around here. And again, this is the main area, but what I do in the winter when I'm breeding these rabbits, because I breed through the winter, I unblock. I usually leave that blocked in the summer. Again, unless I'm breeding, so they don't crap in there and everything. But in the winter, I unblock it. And this creates a nice, warm little area where I put the nest box completely out of the wind. It's kept nice and warm. And the little guys hang out in here, absolutely no problems. These guys were born in the winter. They've just started hopping out of the nest box. So they can hop back in there and be out of the wind and snow and everything. So that's pretty much the basics for housing. Again, the key thing is the wind and the snow. They can take the temperature. You do not have to bring them inside as long as they're blocked off from the prevailing winds and have no snow getting on them. I wouldn't recommend bringing them inside. And if you do bring them inside, you can't bring them back out because they adjust at all temperatures gradually. But if you switch around the temperatures too often, they will, then you'll get into trouble because they're already adjusted. So the name of the game in the winter is feed, and more importantly, water. Your rabbits are going to eat a little more in the winter because they're using that food to stay warm. But the big problem with rabbits is they don't eat if they don't have water. And it's pretty much always below 32 here. I mean, this is still not frozen because I just filled it up, but it's already pretty cold. And that'll freeze pretty quickly. And rabbits will chew on the ice and they'll eat snow. Obviously, you can see there's no rabbit in here because that snow would be eaten. They'll do that, but it's not nearly as efficient. And it's also, it's cold, so it costs them even more energy to, turn that snow back into water. So it's sort of a lose-lose proposition. They need fresh water. They will not do well without fresh water. So I've just changed all these things out, and you can see this is very simple aluminum crock that I've got from, see the ice already forming there? So this is a aluminum crock, cast aluminum crock that I got from Bass Equipment. It's just a solid thing made of aluminum. I used to use ceramic crocks. Problem with ceramic crocks is they can shatter if the ice freezes in a certain way, and they will also break if you try to bang them out. These aluminum crocks, you can bang them all you want, they won't shatter, and they're just generally tougher than ceramic. So that's why I use those. And now, again, there's a lot of ways you can handle water in the winter. And basically with all animals, I say you're either going to have time or you're going to have money. So you have to spend one or the other. I try to do things the cheap way, so I've got this crock system. What I do is I come out in the morning, I gather them all up, the frozen ones, and I bring them inside to thaw them out, which happens really quick. The ice usually just pops right out. And any of the ones that are mostly drunk or only have a little bit of ice in them and are primarily empty, I just refill. And then I do the exact same thing when I come home at night, so twice a day. For the amount of rabbits I have, which is this group, my shed, these two hutches, and I have a few more hutches over there, that takes about a half hour in the morning and a half hour at night. So it's a little time consuming. I have to go back multiple trips. And then once I thaw the crocks and put them in there, I have this jug, regular old plastic jug. I fill up, I walk out, and I refill everybody. What's up, dude? And that's pretty much it. There are automatic heated watering systems that you can get, and that would be ideal in this situation where everything is all close together and you could have one spot where you hang the water from. But it wouldn't really work for my hutch over here or the hutches over there that are all spread out. And they're kind of expensive and they can sometimes be somewhat unreliable depending on which one you do. But most importantly, they need electricity. And I'm not paying to run a wire from my house, which is about 100 feet away, to the shed. You could do that. I wouldn't recommend doing an extension cord because that's not reliable. I've eaten an extension cord with a snowblower that people didn't know was under the snow, and it's just not worth the hassle for me. So what I do is I swap these out. I try to fill them up whenever I get a sec. On days where it's hovering around freezing but not frozen, that'll give them plenty of water. On days where it freezes, they learn pretty quickly to drink in the morning and drink when I come, and that gets them their fluid for the day. But water is the big thing. They really cannot go without water in the winter, which you would think because all the snow, it's not the situation, but it's actually even more important to water them in the winter than even sometimes in the summer, because if they don't have the water, they don't eat, and if they don't eat, they can't stay warm. So you really need to make sure you always have fresh water available to them, however you want to do it. But I like the crock method. It's basic, it's easy. For feed, pretty straightforward. It's a mimic of my summer routine. I feed pellets and then pellets at night and hay in the morning. The difference is I feed a little bit more pellets, and I sometimes give alfalfa a little bit more freely to guys who I think need an extra boost. I always give it to my lactating does and babies anyways, but I give them a little more. And just generally, you're going to want to feed all rabbits more in the winter, just a little bit. And you can monitor and see who's banging at the cage, ready for food, and who's got plenty left over, like this guy. So that's about it for actual care. that's about it for winter care, though. Make sure you keep them out of the rain, out of the snow, out of the wind. Give them plenty of water. Make sure they have plenty of food if they need it. And, you know, keep airflow going. You know, especially when you got all this manure, you have to keep the airflow going, even if it's cold. They need fresh air. But that should do it for today. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe, share with your friends. And check out my video on breeding rabbits in the winter.